All right, guys. The current champion is on this episode. Amy Schoenberg lived in Italy for 13 years, so she spent more time abroad than anyone I've interviewed. This is a great show if you're interested in Italy, also an inspiration for a lot of community college students. I know that about 40% of college students are community college students, but for some reason the number of students that study abroad at community colleges are a lot lower. So it's a great inspirational story if that's where you are. Also, if you're interested in checking out Italy or, of course, attending Governor's State University. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Amy and let me know if you have any questions. All right, thanks, guys. The three biggest reasons only 10% of students study abroad. They're afraid of being homesick, they don't think it's safe, and the number one reason people don't study abroad is cost. We're here to dispel all that. Find out exactly how that 10% crafted their study abroad journey and how you can too. I'm Chris Carlton, and this is the Study Abroadcast. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Study Abroadcast. I am here with Amy Schoenberg from Governor's State University. Amy, thank you very much for being here and welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, and Amy is the study abroad coordinator for
Yes.
Governor's State University, which is a school about 30 miles south of Chicago. So, Amy, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into international education?
Okay. Well, first of all, let me just say that I love my job.
Oh,
I feel so fortunate to be in this role, and it's everything that I wanted, but I did not know what I wanted to go into initially. I started at College of DuPage, a community college in the Chicago area, and just getting those gen eds out of the way, and that's when I decided to study abroad, which definitely changed my whole path. Um, at the time, although I was searching for what I would major in, I just kind of had to focus on having a family and
oh,
not so
wow.
much, yeah, not so much an academic or professional goal. So it wasn't until I studied abroad, and I did go to Rome for a semester back in fall 2000, and it just opened my eyes to so many possibilities, so many passions of mine that I ended up going back to Rome to study the language, and then I transferred my studies there. I got my undergrad at the American University of Rome in Italian studies, and after that, I still just wanted to stay abroad and decided to go to the Italian university to get another degree in philosophy this time. And that was a great challenge for me to improve my language skills. And I was the only American in that in the whole school that I knew of.
Really?
Um,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So I got an Italian degree as well, and during that time, I was able to work as an RA for the American University of Rome, where I graduated from initially. And then I worked as a student life coordinator there. And so I was working with study abroad students, international students, and local Italian students. And I just really loved that kind of job and realized that I wanted to continue working in study abroad. So I was fortunate to work as an on-site program coordinator for a couple of study abroad programs in Rome for a few years. And so basically it was a total of 13 years in Italy.
Yeah,
And then,
I was gonna ask. Yeah.
yeah. And then I moved back to the Chicago area at the end of 2013. And I've been with Governor's State now for 4 years. And like I said, I'm very happy here.
Okay. So then, were you from Chicago originally, or
Yes.
okay? So that's what brought you to Governor's State. Well, yeah, we'll get into Italy a little more. I think you're the person. I don't think I've ever talked to anyone that's been in one country. I mean, that's a big chunk of your life that you lived in
Yes.
Italy. So, yeah, that's pretty. I don't know the word to describe it. I think it's awesome. Like it's unique. I mean, you legit lived there and not just like for a semester, or even an academic year. So that's pretty cool. Now, before you left for the first time,
just to get some context again, and you might have said this, but you were an undergrad or you were still in
Yes.
community college?
Yes, it was my first semester of sophomore year.
Okay. And you were at the community college then.
Yes.
Okay. So that's really cool too because the numbers that of students at community colleges are even lower than what they are at four-year institutions. So the fact
Right.
that you went and then it turned into what it did is pretty amazing.
Hmm.
And before you left, did you apply for any scholarships or grants or anything, or what was the initial program that you did to jump into it?
Yeah, I did CCIS. It was like a consortium back in the day. I believe they're not around or they've merged with someone else, but that was offered through my college, and I was the only one going through my college at the time. Scholarships, I wasn't aware of any at the time, so I didn't take advantage.
Huh, it's fine. Yeah, but at least you went. And
Yes.
did you have any fear? Like, did you have any brothers or sisters that went before you, or any cousins or anything like that, or did your friend go, or what made you just take the initial leap and go to Italy? And why? And then why did you choose Italy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, um, I've I believe I was the first in my immediate family, but my father traveled a lot for work. So I did see him, coming home. He'd bring us, gifts from China and Malaysia, and so he always encouraged all of us to study abroad or do a foreign exchange. And I have six brothers,
Oh,
um, but none of them had taken him up on this offer until I did, and I'm the sixth of the seven siblings. So.
okay.
Um, and you know, my friend had told me, hey, there's a study abroad office at College of DuPage. So I looked into it, and at first I was looking at Czech Republic, Germany, Ireland, because those are all of my roots. Um, but I narrowed it down to Italy because I thought Italy would be a real challenge with the language and the history and the culture. So it took a while to narrow it down, but I finally did.
Yeah, right. And then as I understand it, initially when you went over there, your goal wasn't to learn Italian, but you started
Right.
doing that later, right?
Hmm. Yes, that's correct. I really didn't know a word of Italian before I got there, and I didn't know much about the history or art either.
Yeah.
Those That was all new to me, but it definitely sparked a great interest for me.
Okay. And I'm gonna change the question a little bit. So you
Hmm.
you spent most of your time in Rome, like when you were living
Yeah,
there. Okay.
yes.
So what was it like living in Rome? I studied abroad in Buenos Aires, and I've heard they're a little similar in terms of just big cities.
Mm.
And but just tell me what it was like living in Rome.
Wow. Well, for me, every day was different and unpredictable because if you ever deal with Italian bureaucracy, if you need to try to go to the bank or go to the supermarket, a lot of things close between 1 and 4 o'clock, so you need to really manage your time and plan for that. And you never know if you're on a bus and it's going to stop and because there's a strike or the city's blocked and you need to get off and change your whole route for the day. So it was very unpredictable, but that's one of the things I really loved about it. It was exciting and very poetic. I felt like, everywhere I was walking, there's always something beautiful to see, whether it was an ancient building or a piece of art or just a beautiful tree blossoming in the spring. Um, so, yeah, that's kind of how I would describe it. And of course, and we'll talk later about the food, but the food, of
Yeah.
course, is amazing.
Yeah. It's so. I mean, after living there for so long, does the romance of it wear off and it's just like, oh, I'm driving by the Coliseum to go to work this morning, or is it always constantly there? I mean, I'm on Rome's Wikipedia page right now and just
Okay.
looking at pictures of it, and it's just like I can't imagine living there. It seems like a completely different world, like somewhere that you just there's just the Coliseum, well, I'm not even going to get into
So,
it
well,
now, but
the Pantheon, the
the,
Trevi
the
Fountain.
Vatican.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember when I would come home to visit my family, I would come home about twice a year. And every time I got back on the plane, I'm like, okay, here I go back to my other life, because it is very different. But it is magical. I think, it doesn't wear off if you don't let it wear off. Every moment, I can say, was just, it was wonderful. And I'm so fortunate to have experienced that. And now, I mean, the very first time I heard let's say a live performer playing on the bus, I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? This is amazing. And then it did die down a little bit. I couldn't give, money to all of the performers, because there are a lot of them, but
Yeah.
but it's a special place for sure.
And then, okay, so now jumping ahead, I'm assuming not only did you live in Italy for 13 years, but by doing that, you lived in Europe for 13 years. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming you've been pretty much everywhere in Europe? Or tell me
A lot
about
of
that.
places. Everywhere, there's so much, right? But I got to visit quite a few countries in Europe. Spain, Germany, Holland, Malta, Greece, France.
Yeah.
But I still was a student on a student budget
Right.
for a lot of the time, or I just had responsibilities to stay around. So I probably could have traveled even more if it was permitted. But I definitely got to see a lot.
Okay. Well, yeah, you're lucky. So it's just, I mean, just sitting here talking to you, I honestly feel, I graduated a while ago, but I just feel like every student that comes into your office probably ends up studying abroad somewhere, because it's just like you're missing so much if you don't. And I really get that feeling by talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so now we got into how it changed your view of the world, and I'm still getting over this 13 year. When did you get back?
I got back at the end of 2013.
Okay. All right. So since the millennium then, huh?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you came back about 2 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you decide to come back?
Well, I was in a good place, but I was thinking about my long-term future. And since I do have a big family, almost all of them are in the Chicago area. And all my brothers are having kids. And so a big thing was to be close to family. Another thing was just more economic stability. Italy, it's okay, but they're not as stable as we are in the U.S. And it's easier to create a life, like a stable life here. You can, buy a home and buy a car and all these things we take for granted. Whereas in Italy, it's really hard to have a credit card, for example.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it's the opposite. When you turn 18 and they're arriving in the mail without you requesting them.
Yep.
And the other thing was professional development. I had gotten to a good place, but I just felt like there's just a lot more growth, room for growth here in the U.S.
And okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's just kind of time to come home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then and you were Aunt Amy too, so you can't.
Yes.
Okay, all right, and then now over the entire time over there, can you tell me, is there a story or something funny or crazy that happened to you that sticks out that you want to share with everyone?
Oh, wow. Well, I guess one of the craziest things that I witnessed, you probably heard about the pickpocketing. And I was on a bus outside of the city center, and it was pretty empty. And all of a sudden, we get to the stop, and all these people get on, filling up the bus. They look like all different ages, all different backgrounds. And they get on the bus, and they spread out. And they were actually all staged pickpocketers. And so anyone else who would get on the bus, they would have no idea that this group was together. And so it was kind of a scary feeling. And it just, goes to show that you never know who is a pickpocketer. You might, there might be certain groups of people that you think are, but you do have to watch your things.
Yes.
And sorry, that's not a more exciting story. Because I was going to tell you one about my trip to Uruguay, but
well, so I didn't even know you went to Uruguay. Can you tell me that too?
Yeah. So actually, before moving back home in 2013, I was like, okay, well, now's my chance between jobs to do some traveling. So I decided to do a couple months in South America. And I went to Brazil and Argentina. Uruguay was not on my list, but I did run into an old roommate from Italy in Brazil who told me, you need to go to Cabo Polonio, Uruguay. So I looked into it and I, figured out how to get there, which was pretty complicated because I had to take a ferry and then a train and then a bus and then a Jeep to take me to like the very eastern coast. And this very desolate area on the beach where all the people there live on solar power energy. And there are sea lions on the shore, wild horses, wild turkeys, and the owner of the hostel had caught like a huge fish that day, so he cooked it up for all the people staying there. And it was just a beautiful, unexpected journey.
Wow, it sounds delicious too.
Yes.
Okay. Can we? So yeah, that's just a quintessential trip. I've actually been to Uruguay too, so
nice.
Uruguay. I don't know how to pronounce it, but yeah. So it sounds like a lot of fun. Did you see the hand in the sand there?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, yeah. So can we use that as a segue into the food in Italy?
Sure.
All right. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, what do you miss most? What was your favorite dish there? All that.
Okay, well, so in Europe, they don't use GMOs, so everything is just so fresh. And you can go to the open air markets and get fresh fruits, vegetables, meats, etc.
Yeah.
There's something called prosciutto sausage, so salsiccia di prosciutto, which is very tasty. I miss homemade meatballs. So from maybe my Italian friend's mother, or sometimes you can also purchase them or order them. Those are delicious. Of course, the pasta, there's pasta amatriciana and carbonara made with like the special pancetta or guanciale, which is like a sort of bacon. And there's also something called Roman broccoli, which you can't find here. I did try to grow it, but it didn't work. So
what's Roman broccoli? It sounds good.
What is it?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a cross between broccoli and cauliflower. And if you look it up online, you'll see it's got a beautiful shape. It's like these like cone shapes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's delicious.
So then that's what it is. It's like legit a cross between broccoli and cauliflower.
That's how I would describe it, but
Wow.
Not sure if the scientists would agree. But.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's great. That's exactly the kind of stuff I'm looking for. I'd never even, and yeah, you definitely don't see this here. So, all right. Well, yeah, thank you for that recollection. Now, as convincing as you've been, what would you tell, and there's a student sitting in your office still not convinced, what do you tell someone who's on the bubble about studying abroad? Like, what's your advice to them?
All right. Well, I mean, I would ask them, do you want to grow or do you want to stay where you are? I actually have an example of a metaphor that came to me this summer because I had this large plant on my balcony that was supposed to grow and grow and grow. Well, I gave it all the water it needed. I gave it sun. But it wouldn't grow. So I thought, maybe it needs a bigger vase. And so I put in a bigger pot. And still it didn't grow. Put in another bigger pot, it didn't grow. One more bigger pot, still didn't grow. And I realized, this plant needs to be planted into the ground where the roots can grow freely and can have freedom kind of to go wherever it needed to go. And so I feel like that's how it is for us, students, humans. We might be in a certain environment where we're okay, like we're surviving. We have our food, we have our shelter, we have our friends and our family around us. But if we just stay in that one environment, we're never going to know how big we can grow.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good way to. That's a good metaphor. Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you for that. I'm assuming you've said that once or twice before to students, huh?
Actually, that's the first time, but
Seriously?
yeah, because I
Wow.
thought about it, and but it's something I can share after this.
Yeah. Well, definitely. Well, maybe, or it's an exclusive on Study Abroad Smarter. Amy's advice.
Yes.
And then, do you have any book recommendations that you've read over the years that you'd like to share?
Yes. The one that I think would be appropriate for um, this area is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. So it's a story of a shepherd who sets out to follow his dream. And so you go on the journey with the shepherd in the book. And what's great about it is there are a lot of life lessons that you learn from this book. One of them being that fear is a bigger obstacle than the obstacle itself. So in relation to study abroad, students may have this fear of going, but it's the fear that really is greater than actually doing it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Another point is to embrace the present and just to be present, live in the present. And there are so many possibilities that can happen in the present. So it's how you engage with that will really kind of pave the way for how you want the rest of your life to go. And the other point I wanted to make that comes from this book is to focus on your own journey, because it's so easy to be influenced by others, but you really need to know what's in your heart and what path you need to follow.
Right. Wow, that's really well put. And I'm assuming you haven't said that before either, huh?
Well, in one word or another. I mean, I studying philosophy, and now I'm also going into counseling. I'm all about understanding what this life is all about and what we're meant to do and where we're meant to go.
Well, great. And do you have a favorite quote you want to share?
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
So it's by Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Uh-huh.
And I do live by this one. And it's, though we travel the world over to find the beautiful, we must carry it with us or we find it not.
Oh, it's pretty profound. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and then that's all I had. Is there anything else you want to add?
Well, since, study abroad students should hopefully be listening to this.
Oh, they are. They will.
Just to remember, we are all connected. So your personal experience will touch others too, your family, your friends, and, your entire community, whoever you share your experience with when you return. So, be that example for others. And I think all of this eventually helps open the minds of others and also a global understanding so that we can, learn to treat each other better and have less stereotypes and biases. And we're ultimately contributing to world peace in the end.
Oh, great. That's a great way to end, Amy. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. Guys, thank you very much for listening. Leave a comment or give a review of the show. Get new episodes. You can subscribe on iTunes or Spotify or Anchor. There's a lot of different ones on the website. Social media, too, is a good way. We can also email them. Amy, thank you very much for being here, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to check out all the really neat infographics on the rest of the posts as well as the interviews. There's a lot of good information. You should also download Studying Abroad 201. I really recommend it if you need kind of a fire lit under your ass for studying abroad and you need some motivation. It crafts my journey and exactly what I did. Also, we can email you new interviews or you can connect with us on social media. All right, thanks a lot.